Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that this is a little bit of weird timing. I get on a flight this afternoon to engage in some of the book launch activities that are happening this week. And I just looked at our Amazon rating and I am celebrating. We are at number 32, ranked out of all of books sold on Amazon today. We're number one in dementia, number one in Alzheimer's, and number one in medical diseases. This is just such an exciting, this time is so fun. I'm so grateful to all of you who are showing up here, celebrating with me, engaging, asking questions, joining the community. There's just a lot to be excited about because we're finally gaining traction. Last week, I think many of you know, Dr. Dean Ornish published the first randomized controlled trial in this space. And his conclusions just give me goosebumps every time I reread them. Excuse me, as some of you know, I get emotional because I'm just so happy that finally more people are going to get the benefit of Dr. Bredesen's work. And although Dean Ornish, his approach, it differs slightly, the same foundations are there. The conclusions he drew in this trial are that comprehensive lifestyle changes may significantly improve cognition and function after just 5 months in patients with mild cognitive impairment or early dementia due to Alzheimer's disease. And this was published in Alzheimer's Research and Therapy, that journal, and it's part of Springer Nature, which is very, very reputable. This was a randomized controlled trial. It included 49 participants finished the 5-week intervention, or the 5-month intervention, excuse me, and they were looking not at amyloid. They did look at amyloid, excuse me, they did look at amyloid, but their primary outcome measure was cognition, the thing that really matters to patients and families. And so just to have the momentum of the book happening this week and his paper last week, the CNN docuseries that Sanjay Gupta did looking at at Dean Ornish and Rich Isaacson's patients. This is just like the most exciting time. I feel so fortunate to be part of this movement, really changing the narrative around what's possible for those suffering with dementia and Alzheimer's. And you, just by showing up here and joining this conversation, you are part of it too. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being part of my community, the wider community, just helping to get patients and our loved ones the care that they deserve as they age, and to maintain those optimal last years, to have a wonderful association with what the final chapter of our life might look like. So I want to, just briefly, I know last week we had Dr. Bredesen here, which was phenomenal. And I didn't feel like I did a lot of the sort of housekeeping pieces. And so I just want to share with you all that the book is out. So Reversing Alzheimer's, the hardcover of the book is out and available. And you can go on to any place you buy books. It really helps us if you go to Target or Barnes and Noble and not just to Amazon, because we do that helps the algorithm to show that there's variable and especially to independent bookstores. That's really, really helpful. But also this week, I just want everyone to know that there are free bonus materials. So whenever you purchase the book, you can take your receipt number. And if you have any issues that come up, just email hello@Solseri and we can help you with that. I'll actually put the hello@Solseri in the chat here. And we can help you if you have any trouble getting your bonuses. So the bonuses include, it's a video of me, in case anybody needs more of that, a video of me summarizing each chapter to make it easier, especially if you're someone who is better with auditory listening and learning, or if you like the video, I explain each chapter and the takeaways. There's also a workbook that's totally free to you right now. If you let us know that you purchased the book before the 15th, then we will gift you the 68-page workbook that I'm really proud of. Kate, my collaborator, and I worked really hard on this to make sure that it added a ton of value. And all of this is based on the coaching that we've been doing over the past several years and learning from the hundreds of people that we've supported in that process. And so the workbook, the book itself, is based on everything that we've learned. And I hope, my goal is that it's really accessible and leads to change in your lifestyle. So if you are ordering from, great questions. If you are ordering from around the world, yes, all of these bonuses are free to you this week. So we are trying to encourage everyone to order the book before the 15th. That's the day they stop counting books for the bestseller list. And the reason this is, although my ego, it does help my ego when if we could get on a bestseller list, I will fully own that. And what it's really about is not me. It is about the patients who can be helped if the book gets momentum. If it gets into more people's hands because it ends up on a bestseller list, that means more people will potentially be able to avoid the suffering associated with this awful disease. And so the best way that you can help me do that, achieve that, is to order books before the 15th. So if you're waiting for something, please don't. Please go ahead and get those books earlier. If you want more than one, if possible, I know it's a chore, but if you're willing to, get one from Amazon and one from Target and one from Barnes and Noble and several from an independent bookstore, because that really matters to the small business owners. And then if you can, post a review on Goodreads, on Amazon, anywhere books are sold, we would be so, so, so grateful. That helps to train the algorithm that this is a book that's generating excitement and interest, and it really makes a big difference. So, and please post an honest review. If there are ways, we love feedback. So please let us know if there's something that you think is missing from the conversation, if there's something that you want to see, hopefully in the follow-up book. What we typed out, Joyce is saying, Heather, we are not seeing what you typed as a resource for free bonuses. Tyler has put in the chat, if you go to reversingalzheimersbook.com and scroll down a bit, you'll see where you can enter your receipt number. And then the bonuses will be, once you've put all of that in, we just don't want people coming there and they haven't bought the book and then we give them the bonuses. So you just put your receipt number in, and then on the other side, you will have access to download the video summaries, the best of the summit videos that includes Mark Hyman and David Perlmutter and of course, Dr. Bredesen. And then also it includes that workbook, which again is like, I think that that is worth as much as the book, and helps really put the book into action, right? We can read books all the time. We can listen to podcasts, but if we don't put the information into action, we're not going to get the results. So after you insert the info, the free gifts should be available almost instantly, but that's a very good question. Tyler might know the answer to that. Thank you, Courtney, for being here. Courtney Kenny is here, and she has helped us through this book launch process, and we are now number 32 in books, and this is a really, really, really exciting time. Thank you for all of your help, Courtney. And then okay, so I wanted to go to questions because again, thank you all for being here. Okay, someone is saying, yes, I got the free bonuses right away. So if you haven't gotten those, hello at Solsari, or asking Tyler, who's here. Tyler Walsh, she can send her a direct message. She is in here and helping and supporting us. So if you need any help, please, the Reversing Alzheimer's book, sorry, email. Tyler is doing all of the great back end. Tyler, I don't know what I would do without you. Thank you so, so, so much for your help. She is doing a lot of the housekeeping on the side here. So I wanted to go to the Q&A. I want to make this super valuable time. I know some of you are here because you are looking to learn and put this into action. And there are so many questions that come out of even reading the book, right? There's a lot in here, but it's not all of it. And so and also we've learned more, right? Just last week, Dr. Ornish's paper was published. So we're learning even more. I talk a lot about keto in this book. I think with the Ornish research, with the research that the Sherazais do, they are proponents of plant-based or vegan diets, or vegetarian diets. And I think that there are ways that you can get the benefits, brain benefits, and you don't have to choose one or the other. Maybe you can go back and forth between the two. I think that what we're seeing is that you don't have to be siloed into one particular diet. What can I do to prevent constipation when going into keto? Great question. Magnesium citrate is a great place to start. Increase the dose if it's start with about 400 milligrams or one scoop of something like Calm, which you can get at any health food store, and then increase that as necessary when you are, if you're still struggling to have a bowel movement. There are some great questions in here. So replays, again, if you can, any housekeeping things like replays, these are available. If you signed up for this webinar, there will be replays and you will get an email. So you'll be sent an email with the replay just by signing up for this webinar. You will end up getting the email that has the replay in it. And if you are looking for the replay of the session with Dr. Bredesen, you can always just reply to one of our other emails and we'll make sure that you get that. Same thing with the book bonuses. If you're struggling with that, you can send a note to reversing Alzheimer's book at gmail.com. That will be the best place to get those. All right, so another great question. How do you start the conversation with people who are against believing in reversal? It's so ingrained that there's nothing you can do, and it's so hard to undo the narrative, open people's minds to even listen. Yeah, this is challenging, Olivia, and a big part of we talk about this in the book, but the short answer is there's no one right answer, right? The dynamics in any relationship can be challenging. And what I always encourage people to do is you share the research, right? Many people are looking for where's the randomized control trial? Dean Ornish's paper, we have it now. This is such an exciting week. I'm so thrilled it's just, I couldn't have imagined better timing. And then the book, right? The book is a very, very well researched. I mean, we have tons of references in the back pointing to the primary research. Giving them the book might be one of the ways to start the conversation. Now, not everyone is ready. So please, I've seen people who get into a place where they're like, but my mom isn't getting this and they're not doing it at her assisted living facility. And all of these, people that they feel like they're battling with, or my sister doesn't want to pay for it. And I think if you feel like you're running up against a wall and it's creating more stress, then focus on you, right? When we can model these behaviors, when we can model great exercise and stress management techniques like meditation and prayer and socialization, when we can model these pieces of the puzzle and then show that we are aging more gracefully, that we are happier, that we are thriving, that model might be the most impactful thing that we can do. And also, I don't want you suffering with arguing. Starting the conversation might not be a conversation. It might mean gifting them Dr. Bredesen's book or my book or sending them the article. I will put the link to Dr. Dean Ornish's article in the chat here because this is just, I'm just so, oh, thanks, Tyler did it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, um, again, I want to take questions. And so thank you for adding those to the Q&A. We answered these few. And the supplements. So great question. There's a handful of supplements that I recommend for pretty much anyone struggling with cognitive decline. So one is a product called Qualia Mind, and this was developed. The formula was put together by my dear friend, Daniel Schmattenberger, and Dr. There's a handful of people, but Greg Kelly over at Neurohacker have formulated this product, and they've really used a sophisticated. It's much more sophisticated than any other product on the market. It's a stack of nootropics, of vitamins, minerals, and herbs that are shown to support cognitive function by increasing dopamine and acetylcholine, and then also helping with metabolism. There's a little bit of caffeine in it, and I certainly notice that I am more articulate, that I am quicker on my feet when I've taken some Qualia. So Qualia Mind is a great one to start with. Now, it does have a little bit of caffeine, so if you're sensitive to caffeine, they have a caffeine-free version. Additionally, vitamin D is a great place to start. We know that vitamin D is actually a hormone. It's a signal that goes to our brain that supports the positive signaling that puts us into that neurogenesis and synaptogenesis state, that place where we're building rather than just attacking and defending. And so that signaling can be supported through vitamin D. Additionally, omegas, omega-3s, EPA, and DHA, these are crucially important to making sure that your inflammation is not out of control in your brain. And I especially like a product called Pro-Resolve Mediators, and we use the one from Metagenics called SPM Active. So I know that Tyler is going to put these in the chat but I see a lot of you all asking for them. So it's qualia mind. And then, so qualia mind, omegas, and you can do either regular omegas, EPA, DHA, that's fantastic. But if you already know that you have some inflammation, you may want to add SPM active by Metagenics. And this is the pro-resolving mediators that are part of omegas that really help to reduce the inflammation in the brain. So qualia mind, omegas, vitamin D, and then if you can, so if you're not on any blood thinners, you might also consider using vitamin D with K2. This really helps with bones, but we also know that K2 has a place in brain health. And so vitamin D with K2, you'll see those combo products often. We love products by Zymogen, but there are many other pure encapsulations, Integrative Therapeutics, Priority One. There are lots of great supplement companies out there. And if you're on blood thinners, you just want to probably leave out the vitamin K2 or else talk to your doctor about the type of blood thinner you're on and if there's any interaction there. So again, qualia mind, vitamin D, potentially with K2, omegas, probiotics are another great thing that we can add because of the gut-brain connection. So when we're getting those good, and fermented foods are another way to do this. If we can add fermented foods, we can increase the good biota in our gut, which is going to help us with neurotransmitter synthesis, which is going to help us with digestion. If you know that you have elevated homocysteine levels, that can be associated with brain atrophy. Homocysteine, it requires methyl donors like vitamins B6, methyl B12, and methyl B9 or methylfolate. And also some SAMe can help to bring down that homocysteine number. So this starts to get precision based on what that individual has going on. But those are a couple of ideas that are really helpful for most people generally if they're suffering with cognitive decline. So I know that we also wanted to chat about, well, Elizabeth is asking about statins and cholesterol. Um, so cholesterol is an important one here, right? Cholesterol can help can actually support the process, the pathological process of vascular dementia, high cholesterol levels. And of course, we care as much about heart health as we do about brain health. We need both. And I think the Ornish paper in particular, the design that he used for the study, the protocol, was what he had used for heart health, and it helped heart health. And then now we see when it's used for cognitive decline, it's helping there as well. So these don't have to be in conflict. We can be supporting both. And when it comes to statins, statins affect mitochondrial function because they reduce the amount of CoQ10 in the system. And statins and red yeast rice are the same. So we want to avoid red yeast rice, even though it's a supplement. I'm a naturopath. Supplements are in our tool belt, but red yeast rice is, I would almost put that lower than statins because it's the supplement industry is not well regulated. It's not as well regulated, certainly, as the pharmaceutical industry. So if you're going to choose between those, just go with the statin. And if we want to avoid statins, there are other alternatives. Now, it depends on you, and you need to work closely with a provider so that you're tracking your advanced cardiometabolic markers over time, and you're looking to see what's working. Is diet changing things? Are herbs? Can you use herbs? I love bergamot. Berberine, someone mentioned, berberines will help, and especially if you have overgrowth in the microbiome in the gut, that can be helpful temporarily. But berberines are very antimicrobial, and so you don't want to use them long term because it can be disruptive to the gut microbiome over time. So you can use diet and exercise, of course. You can use supplements and herbs, niacin, bergamot. I like bergamot plus amla. There's a Bergacore Plus product that we use regularly. And then berberines are another option. You can also use Zetia is a newer cholesterol medication that prevents you from absorbing cholesterol. So this is not a statin, but it does help to reduce cholesterol, particularly if you have a familial hypercholesterolemia, that it's less related to your diet and exercise, but it's something that you are at very high risk for because of your genetics. And then there's also cholestyramine, which we use quite commonly for the binding of mycotoxins, of toxins that can affect brain health. However, you can also use it to bind bile, which is where your cholesterol is. having a regular daily bowel movement, using fiber to help you to pass cholesterol so that not as much builds up in your blood. That's another strategy here. So there's lots of different strategies. You want to work closely with a provider, but we can kind of get outside the box of just thinking if I have elevated cholesterol, I need a statin. The statins work very well to reduce cholesterol, but they have side effects associated with them. So I think that we also talked about I think this was advertised as talking about the environment. So I did want to touch on an environment for brain health. And I was discussing this with a wonderful Dr. Jillian up in Vancouver earlier today. And we were just discussing what does a brain healthy environment mean? So when we think about that, toxins are a place that we go very quickly. I see Scott for I can't believe I've never said your last name, Scott. Better Health Guy is here joining us today. I'm so honored. Forrest, Forsgren, sorry. Thank you for joining us. And I know toxins come up when it comes to environment. We want to make sure that there's not molds creating mycotoxins. This is really crucially important to our brain health, but our whole body health, our immune system. So making sure that we are identifying toxic exposures like mold. We also know that air pollution is an issue, especially in the third world. So the more air pollution there is, the more we're breathing in those toxins. Cigarette smoking can affect our brain health, and of course, our cardiovascular risk. So toxic exposure we know can affect our brain health. And that can come from the environment. But we also want to think about how is my environment supporting my habits, right? We all have been in that living room where the TV is constantly on. It is the centerpiece of the living room. And that's the centerpiece of a family's social engagement with each other. It's where they spend all of their time. But the TV is always on. So they're not really connecting. There's a lot of distraction. And if we want to go out and get exercise or meaningfully engage, or maybe play a game of cards or enjoy healthy meals, then we need to consider how our environment is set up. We want cues for the habits that support us rather than cues for the habits that don't. And then we want to make sure that we're getting that pleasure reward at the end of doing things that support our brain health. So, thinking through how can I create an environment that supports me making these lifestyle decisions each day, right? The trajectory of our health really is determined by those everyday decisions, what we decide to put in our mouth, what we decide to do with our time, whether or not we move, whether or not we sit or stand at a desk, what time we get to bed at night, who we engage with, and the nature of those relationships. Those habits, those routines, every day, day after day, that is what determines the trajectory of our health over time. And so, creating an environment to make it easier to make the good decisions is a big part of what I talk about in the book. So, there's an entire chapter on creating a healthy environment. Another consideration when it comes to environment is clutter. So clutter can be very distracting and stressful. And what I don't want to do is create more stress right now by suggesting that you go declutter your entire house. But being mindful and maybe taking one surface, one countertop, one dresser surface, one room at a time, and reducing the clutter so that you can get that Zen-like experience, that there's less clutter in your mind. It doesn't feel like there's a to-do list every time you walk into the kitchen. And this can free up mental space so that then we can take on creative pursuits. It can make us feel like things are taken care of, that there's not a laundry list left to do. So that's a great place to start in terms of your environment. So we've talked about toxins in the environment. We've talked about setting your environment up for those healthy habits that you want to create. And we've talked about decluttering. There are other things that we can think about that really pertain to people who have more severe Alzheimer's, setting up an environment where it's easy for them to navigate the house. That might mean, maybe they've been to the same bathroom and they've used the same bathroom for a long time, but they're starting to have accidents and not make it to the bathroom. You can put a picture of a toilet on the door so that they don't have to read bathroom, but there's a gentle reminder. You can also, if someone's having trouble uh, aiming for the toilet, sometimes this will happen as depth perception or vision starts to change with brain degeneration. You can paint the wall behind the toilet a dark color so that a white toilet stands out. You can also use rugs, dark rugs, black rugs can start to look like a dark hole, and patients with dementia will avoid them. So if you put it in front of a set of stairs you want them to avoid that might be a fall risk, or in front of a door you don't want them to go out of, we can basically use these little tips and tricks in a very practical way to change our behavior and the behavior of a loved one, regardless of where they are on the spectrum of cognitive disease. So I just wanted to give you a little sneak peek into that chapter. And I also wanted to just, for those of you who are joining us, Reversing Alzheimer's, the new toolkit to improve cognition and protect brain health is out now with HarperCollins. It was out yesterday, was the first day that people were receiving this in the mail. It is available wherever books are sold. And when you purchase the book between now and June 15th, this Saturday, you will get access to free bonuses, including my video summaries of each chapter of the book that can help you to get started. You'll also get a workbook. I'm really proud of the workbook that Kate and I put together. It was a passion project, and we really wanted to make sure that the information in the book feels implementable. It feels actionable so that you can get the benefits. And so the workbook is really designed to help this be personal, to help it make sense for you. How do I take all the information that's in the book, brainstorm, write it down, commit to things, and put it into action? And so please download that from it's on the reversingalzheimersbook.com website. You'll get the video summary bonus, you'll get the workbook bonus, and you will get the best of videos, including from the last summit, which includes an interview with Mark Hyman, another one with Dr. David Perlmutter, another one with Austin Perlmutter, and also, of course, my interview with Dr. Bredesen. So please, when you join this community, when you show up here, it is such an honor and privilege for me to share with you what I've learned and to create this ripple effect of supporting and people with dementia and their families and reducing the global burden of this disease. And so I'm so, so, so grateful for your collaboration in this. And also, if you want to do a little bit more, purchase the book, download the bonuses, and then please write us a review, whether it's on Amazon or Goodreads. If you get the book from Target or from an independent bookstore is even better. All of that helps to generate even more momentum for the book. I couldn't be more grateful for your help in this. All right, I want to go back to the questions. So Lata has a great question. When we purchase the book by the 15th, how long after that will the bonuses be available? So as long as you purchase the book before the 15th, you get the free bonuses, and you can communicate with our team. Reversing Alzheimer's book at gmail.com is the best. To connect with Amelia is the best way to communicate about that. After June 15th, there will be a cost to the bonuses. So make sure you get that order in before June 15th. So there are great questions in the Q&A. How do we know if there's mold, from Marianne? So going back to environment, how do we know if there's mold? If you've had water damage, if you have had a leak in your roof or a leak in the plumbing, there is a chance that there's mold, but many people live in homes where they don't realize that mold is present. And so Immunolytics is a great company that we've worked with for a long time, where you can put a tray, a petri dish, in the rooms and collect the dust for several hours. We have some information about how to do that, but Dr. Neil Nathan is really the expert in mold. He has a great book called Toxic. He also has a brand new book out for sensitive patients. And so he is one of my mentors, along with Dr. Dale Bredesen. I'm actually talking with both of them this afternoon. If you are on Dr. Bredesen's email list, you might have seen an invite for that, and we would love to see you all there as well. But we'll be chatting with Dr. Neil Nathan then. He is definitely the expert in how to understand if there's mold, get an environmental testing group in, and also to understand what to do, how to go through remediation, and not just remediating your home, but getting the toxins out of you that might be detrimental to your brain health. So what are the probiotics that I recommend? I love, yes, about 100 billion. So I had a friend who she did her PhD in how to get probiotics to colonize the gut. And what she told me she learned was that, number one, foods are the best. If you can do fermented foods, whether it's kimchi or sauerkraut or any sort of fermented veggies, of course, but also kefir. If you tolerate dairy, a little bit of sheep or goat kefir. Also kombuchas, making sure you're not getting too much sugar. But there's lots of different fermented foods. Most cultures have a fermented food in their traditional diet, and this helps to colonize the gut. Now, if you're looking for a little extra boost from probiotics, there's a handful of supplements that I recommend. I love the Zymogen Probiomax at 100 billion. So my friend who had done her PhD in colonization of the microbiome with probiotics said, food's the best. You want a ton of microbes. So they're not all going to make it into the large intestine where we really want them to colonize. And so you want a ton. You don't want a million. You don't want 1 billion. You want closer to 100 billion. And very few products on the market offer that much in one capsule. And then the third thing she said was you want a lot of variety. So you don't just want one strain of lactobacillus. You want as many different strains of different bacteria as you can get. And so I recommend typically with probiotics that you rotate different high quality brands. So you might do some Saccharomyces one a month and then, or mix that into your probiotic stack one month. And then you might do the Zymogen Probiomax another month. You might do Garden of Life. They've done a great job with getting supplements out through health food stores like Whole Foods and other big grocery store chains. And so they're easy to come by. And they have an ultimate care product that's 100 billion in 2 capsules. So you want to take probably 2 of those, or depending on how your gut is. And so lots of variety. So get it from food first if you can. 2, get a lot. 3, get variety. And then 4, take it with food. It's most likely to colonize if your stomach acid isn't peaking. There were doctors I had learned from early in my career who said to take probiotics before bed. And she said that that actually was not the best way to get them to colonize. The best way to get probiotics to colonize is to take them with food. So hopefully that helps with some gut health here. Of course, we know that brain health and gut health are intimately connected. You cannot separate the two for many, many reasons, but also health generally starts in the gut, and our gut starts in our mouths. So I would love the opportunity to chat a little bit more even about oral hygiene. So I recommend that all patients, and why? Okay, so what does oral health have to do specifically with brain health? When we have gingivitis, especially P. gingivalis has been shown to show up in the autopsies of people suffering with Alzheimer's in the amyloid plaque. Amyloid plaque doesn't get created to cause dementia. It gets created by the brain. The body just has this absolutely divine wisdom, right? It's being created to protect us. And so that protection, amyloid is antimicrobial. And so when we have microbes like P. gingivalis, Porphyria gingivalis, showing up in the brain, that's that attack, that defend mode is the amyloid production. This also happens with herpes simplex viruses, especially HSV1, and then also the Lyme spirochete seems to be very closely associated with the triggering of amyloid plaques. So what we want to do for oral health to protect our brain health and also our cardiovascular health is brush at least twice a day and floss at least once a day. And then you might even consider oil pulling or using a water pick. And this will help to increase the microbiome. There is an oral microbiome that needs support as well, but we want to get rid of especially the microbes that cause gingivitis. So good oral hygiene, seeing the dentist every 6 months at least, getting those cleanings. And then you may also want to inquire with your dentist, potentially a biological dentist who can do a cone beam so that you can look at a 3D x-ray and see if there might be latent infections that are hiding. And of course, get all the mercury amalgams out, so that mercury is one of the known neurotoxins. We want to make sure that that's not getting into your brain and creating damage there. All right, so hopefully these are really helpful tips and tricks. I see so many great questions coming through, and some of them are housekeeping. Again, Tyler is here. Tyler Walsh is my right arm, and she is posting both the website, which is the reversingalzheimersbook.com. If you've purchased the book, that's where you'll put your receipt number, and then you will get the bonuses emailed to you right away. You'll get access to those bonuses nearly instantly. If you run into any trouble with that, reversingalzheimers@gmail.com is the email that you want to reach out to Amelia there. She is going to help you to make sure that you get the whatever tech issues we run into, that they all get solved. If you need any help, please reach out. Okay, so in the book, yes, we go through these things, and the book covers a ton, and there's always so much more to teach. There's always so much more we are learning, but there's so much that we can do to just get started protecting our brain health. So what's in here? The book has resources for those struggling financially. We have an entire list. Actually, I'll read it to you now. So an excerpt from page 318. I know many of you, or excuse me, 317. Many of you haven't gotten here yet because you've just gotten your books yesterday or today. And so low or no cost interventions are something I just want to highlight, because this is one of the kind of the things that comes up. It's an impediment for people getting this care. They feel like it's too expensive. There are many, many, many things that we can do starting today, form habits that can help us to improve cognitive function that don't cost a penny. So Barbara was in a recent one of our coaching programs, and at the end of 12 weeks, we were discussing the takeaways, and she put together her daily dozen. Her daily dozen were: number one, reach out to a loved one outside of our immediate family unit. Number two, pray or meditate. Number three, get outside. Number four, brush and floss teeth twice a day. Number five, declutter. Some of these are starting to sound familiar, I hope. Number six, cook a meal and sit down to eat it. Number seven, exercise. Number eight, garden. Put my hands in the dirt. Number nine, open doors and windows for an hour each day. Number 10, do at least one act of kindness. Number 11, read for at least 20 minutes. And number 12, get to bed earlier. Now you might want to pick a time. Get to bed at 9 o'clock every night. Get to bed at 8:30, 11, whatever works for you. But getting to bed at a consistent time can be very beneficial for brain health. Additional ideas that we added were giving blood. So if you're in prevention, if you're in kind of a prevention stage or a very early stage, giving blood is a way to be a hero, one. It's free, and it's also a way to stimulate the production of new blood cells and also eliminate some plasma that might have toxins that have built up or inflammatory cytokines that have built up. And the plasma gets separated, so your red blood cells can go to help someone. Your other cells might go to help someone, but that you can get the benefit of getting rid of some of the junk that can build up in your plasma over time. Socializing. Taking your shoes off indoors so that we leave the toxins outside. All the petrochemicals that we pick up walking across the parking lot, or all of the glyphosate or Roundup that we pick up walking on sidewalks where they don't want the weeds to grow between the cracks. Leave that junk outside. And use, if you want to wear shoes in the house, get specific shoes to support to make sure that you're not accumulating toxins in the home. Turning the TV off, just noticing when it's on and it doesn't need to be, and turning it off. Volunteering, choosing whole foods over processed foods, and then replacing old household and personal care products for less toxic ones when you run out. So not having to buy a bunch of stuff right as you read the chapter on environmental toxins, but really just making a habit of, okay, I'm going to use the Environmental Working Group has a great resource called the Healthy Living app, where you can scan the universal product code. That's this code that's on the back of anything that you buy, or somewhere on anything that most things you buy. And you can scan it and see, where is this product, my shampoo, my conditioner, my soap, my dish detergent, whatever it is that you use in your household, how is it, and where does it rate on an A to F rating in terms of how toxic it is and how bad it is potentially for the environment and for you. So these are just a few ideas that can help you get started. So Really exciting, a really, really exciting time in this chapter of the science when it comes to reversing, delaying, and preventing Alzheimer's. The new study by Dr. Dean Ornish out last week, very exciting. The first randomized controlled trial, and this adds to the literature that Dr. Bredesen and his team, led by Kat Toops, published in July of 2022. What my team and I published last year in 2023 in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, showing that there were improvements in cognition for people with mild cognitive impairment using this approach. Foundational pieces of diet, exercise, sleep, stress management, these pieces are powerful. And my work in the world is to tell everyone that it works, that it can work. And the work is putting it into practice, putting it into action. And my goal with the book is helping to make that a little bit easier. So I want to go back to more questions. Any info on the benefits or problems using cannabinoid products to help dementia-related symptoms? Yeah, this is a really good question. So we see that, cannabis can help with sleep, can help with agitation, can help people feel calmer, but kind of like so can benzodiazepines, but and also antihistamines. The issue with that category of cannabis products, benzodiazepines, and even the antihistamines is that they also can have a negative effect on cognition. Now, depending on where someone is in that spectrum of cognition and how desperate you are to basically get them to sleep, you may want to try other things first because there are other things that help with supporting sleep, help with reducing oxidative stress, help with generally living healthier longer, where you don't need to use cannabis that can have a negative impact on cognition. And particularly smoked cannabis is really hard on your lungs. So I always recommend, even patients who are getting benefit from CBD or THC or a combination of both, I do not recommend smoking that ever. If you're going to do that, do it orally with tinctures or potentially some sort of mint or gummy or something that doesn't hopefully have high sugar, isn't overly processed. But really, I think the better things to try are things like potentially melatonin, time-release melatonin, theanine, taurine, GABA, and inositol. Inositol has been shown to reduce the production of amyloid plaque over time. And then additionally, things like lion's mane can help with sleep and mood, and they also help with cognition. So whenever we can get that dual purpose out of something where it helps with sleep, cognition, mood, it's three purposes, right? I would much rather try that first than go towards something like cannabis that can have a negative effect on cognition. Is insulin resistant common in older people? Does everyone have that? Good question, Debbie. So yes, the all of us, regardless of our um, as we age, regardless of our diabetes status, we all have more insulin resistance in the brain. And so even if your A1C is perfect, we aren't as good at utilizing sugar and turning that into fuel as we get older. And so this is very common. It's almost universal. And the thing to support that is to go back and forth in and out of ketosis. So this helps us to reduce that insulin resistance, increase our insulin sensitivity. And when we are consuming glucose, carbohydrates, sugar, we are better at turning it into ATP or fuel. So I recommend if you are suffering with diabetes or insulin resistance to try a ketogenic diet. Certainly reduce your carbohydrates, certainly reduce processed foods or eliminate them altogether, and potentially get into ketosis. What is my view on flaxseed and phytoestrogens, especially for perimenopausal women? Some say they block your own production. So Mao, that's a great question. I am a fan of phytoestrogens in menopause, and I'm also a fan of bioidentical hormone replacement. So as we're going through menopause, we are losing our own production. So it's not that they block production, but what they can do is block receptor sites, and you're not going to get as much estrogenic activity out of a phytoestrogen like This is true from soy, black cohosh, maca, and you mentioned flax. Those phytoestrogens will sit down. I think of it like sitting down on a seat of an estrogen receptor, and then they're going to create some estrogenic activity, but it's going to be a fraction of what your endogenous estriol would do. And so in perimenopause or even in menopause, when we use phytoestrogens to kind of bump up that estrogenic activity, that can actually be very helpful. So, and then also it takes the place of a xenoestrogen, something like a chemical estrogen sitting down on that same receptor site. So then we're not getting the detrimental effects of the xenoestrogen. It can be somewhat protective to use these phytoestrogens. Flax is also great. It's a source of fiber, good fat, the omegas. So there's tons of reasons to use flax seeds, and generally nuts and seeds are great for the good fats and the fiber. Also from Mao, do you see Alzheimer's on a brain scan, or is it more an issue with neurotransmitters, and which ones? Yeah, so how to diagnose Alzheimer's? Not so much neurotransmitters, although neurotransmitters are related, right? This is acetylcholinesterase inhibitors like donepezil, and then also the glutamate, Namenda or memantine is involved in glutamate, which is a neurotransmitter. Those don't work particularly well, right? So we can play with neurotransmitters that can give us some support, but that's more helpful in mood than cognition, I think, generally. And but the question of diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So these days, it's actually really exciting because there are new blood tests like the p-tau 217, the amyloid ratios, and then there are scans that we can do for usually brain MRIs, and there are quantitative MRIs. There are ones that measure the glucose uptake and basically the energy being produced in the brain. And then there's also some that look at our ability to get blood flow to different regions of the brain. And so there's different ways to look at this. I'm not an expert. I rely on Cyrus Raji, who is the expert in this, and I'm really grateful to get to review cases with him to look at what an Alzheimer's brain looks like. Now, what we know is that Alzheimer's pathology often has overlaps with Lewy body, with vascular dementia, with frontotemporal dementia, with other types of dementias. And so even though the brain scans can give us a really good idea about what's going on, they're not always definitive. But in Dr. Bredesen's research, they did before and after MRIs, and they actually saw growth in brain volumes and a reduction in the rate of decline of hippocampal volume, that memory center of the brain. So we are using images to get information about Alzheimer's. They're not looking at a causal level usually, although there are things that can pop up like a lesion, like a brain tumor or hydrocephalus, which can be causes of cognitive decline that we would want to catch. All right, I swallowed 2 large fillings from Sheila. I swallowed 2 large fillings when I broke my teeth and was worried, but my dentist said it wasn't a problem. What do I think? I would defer to your dentist, Sheila. I just don't have quite enough information. I'm sorry, that sounds a little bit traumatic. Um, okay. What was the environmental group you mentioned to find less toxic products? It is the Environmental Working Group, and they have an app called the Healthy Living app that can be used to scan the UPC or the Universal Product Codes on any product that you pick up. It's not perfect, not all of them are in there, but the Environmental Working Group, they do a phenomenal job, and they put out the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 so that you can get guidance on which vegetables you want to make sure that you're buying, fruits and vegetables that you want to make sure you're buying organic. So that's how a lot of people have heard about EWG, but they have other really great resources around water, about products, a lot of those. And then Olivia's also mentioning the Yucca app, which I have not used personally, but I've also heard good things about that one. From Sheila, I'm loving your enthusiasm. Thank you, Sheila. But I'm not from the US. I'm finding I can't follow your supplements because you're talking too fast for me. I get that feedback a lot, Sheila. And I'm sorry, I am very enthusiastic. I'm so excited about that, about all of this. And there's replays. You can slow me down. And there's no way, even though I want to, and that's part of what's coming through, I want to talk quickly because I want to give you guys all tons and tons of information that's super actionable. So I start talking really fast. Thank you for slowing me down. And I can't yeah, I won't be able to deliver everything in my brain to you today. So, what I would encourage you to do, please get the book, read it at your own pace, download the videos, go through them at your own pace. This information is in there. This is not the only place to get it. So, the supplements, often there are alternatives. And when you look at I don't use formulas with proprietary blends. I always use formulas that say exactly what's in there. So, you might not be able to get the exact same product, but you can put together some formulas that will get you the same benefits, whatever is available in the country that you are in. Um, what are the safest, most accurate, comprehensive tests for leakiness of the blood-brain barrier, and what lies directly above and below it? And anyone's covered by insurance? That's a really great question. That I am not familiar. I don't know the answer to that. There is one through Cyrex. I don't think that that's covered by insurance, but there is a kind of a leaky brain panel. I'm not remembering what Cyrex array panel it is off the top of my head. We run that sometimes, but I kind of assume most people have a relatively leaky blood-brain barrier. Things that help are glutamine, aloe, deglycerinated licorice. We use this for a leaky gut barrier, but also seems to help with the leaky brain barrier. You can also do the things that reduce inflammation, like the pro-resolving mediators. So that might be something to consider. You can look at the Cyrex panels and see if there's one there. It's not something that I test for typically. Usually when we're getting you the nutrients, when we're reducing the inflammation, when we're fighting off the infections, getting rid of the toxins, you get enough support that can heal. So are there specific ways to do it? Typically, I think of the glutamine and aloe. Aloe really helps with those barriers and surfaces. From Deb, our nutritionist told us not to take qualiamine because there is an ingredient that she read is harmful for Alzheimer's patients. What are your thoughts on this? I would love to know which ingredient, Deb, because that is contrary to what I have my clinical experience. We use qualiamine in our clinical trial where 17 of the 23 participants improved. We use that for everyone in the trial. That was foundational for us. So I'd be very curious. Maybe there is new research that I'm not aware of. I don't keep up with absolutely all of it. So I would love to hear about that. And donepezil, there's a couple questions about Aricept and donepezil. So there was a paper published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. It and what they showed was that 5 years after starting donepezil or Aricept or Namenda, memantine, 5 years after starting one or both of those together, patients actually had worse cognition than if they had never started them. And so what I've seen clinically is some patients get a little bit of a boost for a few months. They cognitively are a little bit better. And then over time, that wears off. And according to the research, 5 years later, they end up worse off than if they'd never started. So the big thing here, though, is do not stop them if you are on them. So big flashing red light here. If you or a loved one is on donepezil, Aricept, Namenda, memantine, if you are rivastigmine is the patch, please do not stop taking them because that dramatic drop in those in any of the medications that affect neurotransmitters, it can be very stressful on the brain. And so you do not want to stop them. I've seen patients who, hear a talk or they hear about the article and they stop taking them thinking it's bad. The issue is that change, stopping taking them, whether intentionally or because you forget to do the refill or something like that, that is very stressful on the brain. And I see people get worse afterwards than if they had just never started it. So I see somebody asking for the link to that, and I do want to get you that. It might have to go out afterwards because I want to use our time here super efficiently. And there's so many great questions. Um, So, what do you think about the new blood tests for diagnosing Alzheimer's from Carol? There, I'm not sure exactly which one you're referring to, Carol, but the p-tau 217 is a great one. There's also p-tau 181 is available now. The amyloid ratios, the amyloid ones can they can go up in response to, say, COVID. So they can go up transiently. So these are new. And I think that we can use them to be reassured. We can use them to kind of get an idea of directionality. Are things getting better or worse? The imaging is very, very helpful if you have access to that, but it's quite complicated to get. These markers are not covered by insurance yet, so they're still out of pocket. So I think that they're exciting. If you have extra resources, I encourage you to get them. If resources are limited and you don't have hundreds or thousands of dollars to spend on lab testing, then I would recommend focusing on the labs that are about causality, because those are really, if we see that there's high toxins, if we see that there's nutrient deficiencies, if we see that there's infections that are present, if we see that your cortisol levels are off or your hormone levels are off, those signaling pathways are off, your thyroid is off, those are very actionable. And what we really want to focus on when it comes to testing is, what are the things that are going to change my treatment plan significantly? And when we see the p-tau numbers and the amyloid numbers and the imaging, this is phenomenal from a research perspective, from a nerd perspective. Like, I want that for everybody. But from a practical perspective, I want to make sure that people are spending their time and resources on the things that are going to make a difference in their cognition. That's what really matters. And so I just encourage you to kind of think through that. And if you Again, if you have the resources, we would love to play with them and be able to look at all of this, but it's not essential to getting the benefit of Dr. Bredesen's approach. Um, Finding Bredesen trained providers, you can Google that, Carla. There are several. Deb Gordon is in Asheville, Oregon. There are some great providers in the Portland area. So absolutely, you're going to be able to find someone there. Dr. Bredesen is amazing. He is trained over 2,000 providers around the world. So Google that. Of course, signing up with Apollo, Dr. Bredesen's group, that will get you access to all of the providers in your area. And then I've heard red light therapy not only maybe help in reducing, not only helping to grow hair back, but also reducing the size of lesions in the brain. Is that beneficial for certain kinds of lesions? What minimum amount of changes in size or nature of the lesion? So this is a question about red light therapy, I think. And so I am not an expert in lesions in the brain. I do not work on brain tumors. That is not my area of expertise. And I do not know the answer to any question related to that in terms of red light therapy. I do know that those should be found, and you should have a neurologist, potentially a neurosurgeon on your team to help if there is a lesion in your brain. That is not, again, my area of expertise. But red light therapy we use for our dementia patients at Marama, at the Clear Mind Center in Kansas. We've used them for our clinical patients as well. It wasn't included in the study, but my favorite one is the V light. And this is kind of like a cap that fits on your head, and there's also a nose clip that helps to get light up through the cribriform plate into the brain. So what we want to do is use that typically for 20 minutes, 5 days a week, 5 to 6 days a week. And I have seen patients with more severe Alzheimer's change in 20 minutes. They are better 20 minutes later after using the red light. And that was what really compelled me to use it with everyone. With people when they're more in that preventive phase, we don't see stark differences in 20 minutes after using it. But I have to think that it's helping at some level, because there is quite a bit of research on red light therapy, particularly this like mid 600, mid 800 range, where we're getting the mitochondrial benefits described by Mike Hamblin out of Harvard. There's been an extensive amount of research done on this, and we can see it. You can see when red light therapy is used aesthetically, you see that there's less wrinkles, fine lines, when you use it consistently. So I have to think that something good is happening, and there's certainly not risk. Now, the devices can be expensive, and the V-Light, the one that we like most is the Neuro Duo, and it has a setting for anxiety, the alpha setting, and then it has gamma setting, which is more helpful for memory. And with the alpha setting for anxiety, and people with anxiety, we see that they report feeling much calmer after 20 minutes as well. So I'm a fan. Again, it's one of those things. If you have extra resources, by all means. If you're strapped for cash, then there's other ways that I would spend it. Diet, exercise, the daily dozen that I read you. Those are the ways that I would spend it. This is Such an incredible group, such wonderful questions. I'm delighted, I'm honored, humbled to have all of you show up here. We've had well over 400 people here for the past hour discussing this with us, and I just couldn't be more grateful. Again, my book, Reversing Alzheimer's, and really, I just said my book, and it's so weird to say that because it doesn't feel like my book. It never has. This book was the serendipity that led to me writing this book with Kate and with HarperCollins and the team was inexplicable. I have no idea how it happened. It was not me. And the stories in here are not mine. They are the stories of the patients and the caregivers and the inspiring people who are helping me to change this narrative. This is not mine. This is for everyone, and it's my account of the stories that have shown me what's possible. Thank you for being here. Thank you for buying the book so that it can have more impact and reduce the suffering. And thank you for your reviews and your encouragement. You're the reason I get out of bed in the morning. So thank you to all of you. Excuse me. Um, I am going to run to the airport to get to Kansas, where we are having some events associated with the Clear Mind Center there in Wichita, where we have this immersive experience. And then I'm also going to see some of you in the webinar that I'll do with Dr. Neil Nathan and Dr. Bredesen later today. Thank you all so much for your kind attention, your engagement, for being part of this movement. Bye.